Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sandy K Nutrition, Health and Lifestyle Queen. Today, I'm going to talk to you all about hair loss for women in perimenopause, menopause. So let's just call it 40 and up. I'm going to talk to you about this from a very objective point of view because there are lots of podcasts out there that talk about hair loss, but many of them are, listen, you get a lot of people who are biased because that's part of their business. That's what they do. There's nothing wrong with that. And that doesn't mean that they're not experts in their field. But I am coming at you about this topic as a 55-year-old woman without a thyroid gland. Most people know that a lot of times thyroid comes into play with hair loss. But I'm actually coming at you from a different perspective because I have I have no skin in the game. I'm just trying to help you as a woman over 40 who's experiencing hair loss. So I'm going to start with the couple of different types of hair loss. You can go and listen. I have interviewed Dr. Alan Bauman of Bauman Medical. I have no affiliation with him except that I know him and I've met him, and he has a fabulous clinic. I think it's in Boca Raton in Florida. So you can go back and search my interviews with him. He's amazing at what he does. And I even did one of the hair tests where you actually check the follicles. He's amazing, you guys. And what I found with my hair, so as you can see, if you're watching this podcast, please go on YouTube, by the way, and subscribe to my YouTube channel because I am going to post most of my interviews there. And I have really good hair for a 55-year-old woman. There has been many times for me where it wasn't so great, and I've had a lot of shedding and hair loss. So there's a few things. There's genetics. There's the fact that you're kind of born with good hair. And I've been blessed that I've always had pretty decent hair. So there's that fact that I'm fortunate in that way. But there are a number of things that can go wrong around perimenopause for women over 40. I'm going to go over that. But before I start that, I am going to say that there are different types of hair loss, different reasons, different types. What I will say is there is no miracle supplement that will work for everyone. And you've got to figure out why it's happening to you in the first place. So that's the number one thing. The number two thing I'm going to say, that test that I did with Dr. Alan Bauman, it was really cool because it showed follicles that are just thinning. Okay. And it also showed follicles that are like, it's just dead. Like there's nothing you can give me snake oil of any type of lotion potion. It ain't coming back unless you do a hair transplant. So that's the case in some people. And I highly recommend you go and see somebody like Dr. Alan Bauman who does that kind of investigative work to find out why you're experiencing that hair loss in the first place, if it's that severe. So I wanted to note that right at the beginning. I did do that test and I had quite a few follicles that were around the front that were there but thinning. So that is very, very common. And there's only one kind of device that really, really helps that. And I'm going to say you have to be very careful. Everybody's trying to sell you their red light device. So I actually have this written down on what you must look for. Again, if your follicle's dead and it's not just about the thinning of the hair follicle, if it's just dead, this isn't going to help you. So knowing your whys is really important. But red light therapy, so low level light therapy, photobiomodulation can help. to strengthen and thicken that follicle. That's there. That's not dead. Okay. And when I say can, there is some research. Dr. Alan Bauman, and I have absolutely no affiliation. I know he sells like the right type of power and also the right nanometers that's required to actually make a difference. So that's the wavelength of that red light therapy. So you want, I'm going to tell you this, so just like write this down. Often you got to look for 650 to 660 of visible red wavelength, 810 to 850 of near infrared, and you want 30 to 60 30, and I don't know what this measurement is. Sorry, guys. 30 to 60, I don't know, something centimeters squared, whatever, at the scalp for clinical. Look for clinical setups of power. Because I actually recorded a podcast about red light therapy. There's one thing to have the right wavelength, but it's another thing to have enough power to make a difference. So it's kind of like all of those things. And then there's duration. You got to do about 20 minutes per session. You got to do it about 3 to 5 times per week. And you know, maybe you're going to see a difference. And if you do, that's great. So if you are looking for one of those red light therapy caps, you just need to make sure that they have clinical evidence because there's so much of it, you guys, online. I just don't want you to go out and buy something that's just, BS and doesn't have the actual science behind it. So I have done a little bit of research um, in brands. I'm going to give you a few brands. I have zero affiliation with any of them. One is called Current Body, and it's the LED hair growth helmet. And remember, I'm not giving you advice, so you're going to have to just dig a little deeper. One is called Celluma Restore. One is called Eye Restore Professional and Elite Caps. And then you can also go to Dr. Alan Bauman as well. Most of these red light therapy caps are going to be over $1,000. And the fact is if you don't spend the money, you're probably not going to get what you need. Now let's get back to the rest of what I wanted to talk about pertaining to hair loss for women over 40. So, number one thing is to find out the root cause. So, again, to do that, it might be a little bit tricky, but a big reason why women start to experience thinning of the hair loss, all of that is hormones. I mean, if you've never had it before and all of a sudden you're entering that gray area called perimenopause or menopause, you can probably surmise safely that hormones have something to do with it. So I suggest getting your hormones tested. And a lot of people are like, well, why? I don't get it. And the main reason is because estrogen and progesterone start to decline and they're very protective of many things. Obviously, we know this. But with hormones, a lot of times it's about the balance of them. So testosterone, which can come into play here, this has something to do with that hair loss if your issue is hormonal. Estrogen, progesterone start to decline. Progesterone's usually first. Estrogen comes next. Testosterone's usually the last one. And so it's those ratios that can really cause problems with hair loss. And the decline of the estrogen and the progesterone, it counterbalances those androgen hormones. And testosterone, because it's declining more slowly, it kind of messes things up. So what can happen is DHT can become more active, and DHT is just a very active form of testosterone. So signs of this imbalance could be you're growing facial hair, you're growing more hair on your body, your scalp is thinning, you maybe have mood dysregulation, you maybe have acne. So I suggest you go see your hormonal practitioner and get some blood work done. Or you can do the Dutch test if your practitioner does that and kind of figure out what's going on with the ratios of your hormones. Because sometimes what can happen is you fix what's going on over here with these hormones, and then your hair stops shedding, your hair stops falling out, which is, ideal. But what can happen if you don't do that, you're going to keep having more issues. And that's why I'm always like, see somebody who can check your hormones first and foremost. Now, a couple of little things that as a practitioner I would do with a client. And remember, I'm not your practitioner. I'm not a doctor. I'm a registered holistic nutritionist. I work very much more so with supplementation. But, a lot of people are like, no, I wouldn't put that on me because a lot of people are worried about what they put on their bodies, which I am too. But if I was losing my hair, I'd probably just, and I knew that my problem was DHT, is I would probably do it in all honesty. Because, the facts are I'm vain about my hair. But if you go to Costco and you buy Nizoral is that dandruff shampoo. It actually blocks DHT in the scalp. So if you have all those symptoms I talked about, that might be a quick fix before you see your practitioner to say, all right, let's check my hormones. And the reason is Nizoral has this like antifungal ingredient that actually blocks it. So if you're desperate and you have those symptoms, you can do that twice a week. Typically, what's recommended is you put the Nizoral on your scalp, you let it sit for 2 minutes, then you rinse it off. And you do that a couple days a week, and it should kind of get that problem to slow down at least until you see your practitioner as to the root cause. Now, a few things that you can discuss with your practitioner, hopefully they are, remember, if you're going to talk supplements, make sure that they understand them. They're trained in therapeutic grade supplementation. Typically, that would be a naturopath doctor, a registered holistic nutritionist, somebody like myself. Functional medicine doctors are often trained in supplementation, but a few you can discuss with them is saw palmetto is one. Green tea is another one. They help to kind of redirect that 5-alpha reductase pathway, which can cause that hair loss. Zinc is another one, and nettle root. So I will get into nutrient deficiencies as well. But the main thing is you're going to want to check what's going on. Why is this happening? Don't run to Costco and buy that hair supplement thing that they have there, because unless you know why this is happening, a lot of people just probably see that it doesn't do anything. Now, along with this hormone testing, I'm going to say make sure that you check your thyroid. And the reason I say that is thyroid, if you're under or over active in your thyroid, that too can cause a lot of shedding. I've been there myself, my friends. I've been very hyperthyroid, and I have clumps of hair in the shower, and I've been very hypothyroid. I've been to different extremes. So thyroid is really important, but not just TSH. By the way, I wrote the Essential Thyroid Guide. It is on Amazon. It's just a guide. It is not clinical. It is not a clinical book. I want to make sure I stress that. It's just for those of you who just want to understand a little bit more about this thyroid that we have. I don't have one. I had thyroid cancer at age 41, and I'm thriving in menopause. So there you go. But it's not an easy feat. So when you do check your thyroid panel with your practitioner, make sure they check TSH, free T3, free T4, and antibodies. Those are the most important parts of the thyroid. There are other tests that you can check, but those are critically important. So make sure you can rule out that thyroid isn't the problem. So, another reason why we could experience hair loss is stress. Stress, stress, stress. Stress is always a factor in everything. And with stress, I think I'll have to do a separate show on that altogether because there are so many things that you can do for managing stress, including lifestyle, supplementation, that sort of thing. So if you're going through a very high stress period in your life, you're going to want to work with a practitioner who can kind of help you mitigate those effects of stress. Another thing that could cause hair loss is medications that you're on. So check very carefully on side effects and see if that is a side effect. And if it is, find out why that medication can affect your hair. And the reason I say that is, let's say, I don't know, you're on some blood pressure medication and you find out that that particular blood pressure medication can deplete B vitamins, then you might know, hey, since I'm taking this blood pressure medication, I better be taking a high quality methylated form of B complex vitamins to try to counteract those side effects. So, you see what I'm saying? You have to be your own health detective, my friends. And this is why, you hear stuff on social media and this person says, do this for hair loss. Well, it's not so simple. And a lot of it falls into your own detective work because nobody will know your body better than you do, my beauties. So, okay, I talked about stress, medications, thyroid, hormones. Now, another thing that could cause hair loss is a dysregulated blood sugar. So again, go back to your practitioner. Make sure they check fasting insulin, fasting glucose. Make sure they check your HbA1c, which is a 3-month snapshot on how much sugar is basically sitting there and wreaking havoc on your on your blood sugar. So, those metrics are really important to understand. And I do work with nutrients. I am a certified metabolic balance coach as well, but there are certain nutrients that are big helps with this blood sugar dysregulation and insulin sensitivity. When you are working with your practitioner, speak to them about orthomolecular products. There's the two that I swear by are CM Core and Diaxonol, and I have zero affiliation with them. They're just great formulations that include cinnamon and chromium and berberine. And it's never just about berberine. Everyone hears about berberine, berberine, berberine. And yes, berberine is wonderful, but berberine alone a lot of times doesn't do the trick. Those are the facts. And that's my experience. So nutrients, I'll shift over to nutrients because I think it's really important. If you eat a diet that is not balanced, If you eat a lot of sugar, if you are on a vegetarian or vegan diet, your hair loss could be a cause of that diet. So ensuring that you have proper nutrients. And then what I will also say, for example, B complex vitamins. You always see biotin in all hair formulas. Biotin is really important to support the integrity of the hair. So B vitamins, just to explain a little bit about how they're so important. B12 is one of the family of B vitamins that's really hard to get in non-animal foods. So, a lot of times, if you're a vegan, you need to supplement with B complex, B vitamins because of that factor. You can get B12 in like dairy and cheese, those kinds of foods. But what I will explain is how there is this domino effect. So let's say you are going through a very stressful period in your life. What can happen is you are depleting those B vitamins very quickly. And perhaps under such stress, you're not eating a balanced diet. So you're not replenishing those B vitamins. B vitamins are water soluble vitamins. And the best way to think about it is they're easy in, easy out. And some of the things, even if you're exercising a ton, if you're under a lot of stress, you could be depleting those B vitamins and then experience hair loss. You see how there can be a domino effect? So you really need to be your own health detective to figure out what's going on and why, and take the time to examine what's your why in this reason. So, B vitamins are very important if you are still menstruating, because chances of being really low in iron or ferritin are less as you get older and as you stop menstruating. But I always had an issue with low ferritin as well as thyroid in my 40s. I believe in taking either an iron bisglycinate or a heme form of iron and take it with vitamin C if ferritin and iron are your reasons. So again, you got to get blood work with your practitioner to find out what's going on there because you can experience hair loss if your iron levels are normal, but your ferritin is not. I've been there. So that's another thing to check. And then I always say, look to healthy essential fatty acids for healthy hair. That's also very important. So the last thing I'm going to talk about, I'm going to call this my bonus. Okay. And again, I do want to say make sure you work with a practitioner because I don't know you and I'm not giving you any advice because I don't know you. I'm just giving you these breadcrumbs for you to go and speak with a qualified practitioner who understands the stuff I'm talking about. Because a lot of cases, your general physician will not. So the last thing, and this is a bonus, and this is something that I've been using for years now, and it's called black cumin seed oil, or I think it's Nigella something. I had to look it up, Nigella sativa. I always think of weed when you say sativa, so that's why I wasn't really sure. Anyway, with black cumin seed oil, you can either ingest it or you can use it topically on your hair. I ingest capsules. And what's really interesting about black cumin seed oil is there's a lot of different things it can do for the body that are good for the body. But again, check if it's right for you. One is, remember I was talking about DHT, which is that form of testosterone that can be a very powerful form of testosterone. It modulates that. So it kind of helps keep it in check, especially during that time when you're in perimenopause or menopause and your hormones are kind of all over the place. The other thing is that it's anti-inflammatory. Inflammation is always going to cause problems, and hair loss might be one of them. It's also an essential fatty acid. It's also an antioxidant, and it supports insulin sensitivity. And there has actually been some research to compare it to minoxidil, the Rogaine, and its effectiveness. So this is kind of that secret that not many people, unless you're a practitioner, even know about. So I hope this was helpful. And I would love for you to go ahead and rate and review my podcast with a few kind words. So you can do this on Spotify. You can do this on Apple. Make sure you're actually subscribing to my podcast and follow me on all of my social media channels. It's Sandy K Nutrition everywhere, where you're going to get authentic content with integrity. That's the key. So do that. And then the last thing I am going to say is I have actually sent out my information to a few very targeted companies that I would love to work with. I'm like, I have had sponsors in the past, but I don't believe in one-off advertising. I really don't like that personally. So if you are a business that is looking to partner with me on all of my social media channels, including my podcast, get in touch with me, Sandy at sandyknutrition.ca. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Share this and thank you for being here.